Hey, it's Blake Morgan, and I'm back with Blake's Take, where I unpack customer experience in 3 minutes or less. And we're back with part 2 of customer service tips on Twitter. As you might know, I've launched a couple Twitter support programs at big companies, and I know a couple things about interacting with customers on Twitter. I've also done it myself, which adds a very unique perspective, in addition to doing the strategy. So here is the second half, my last 5 tips for you interacting with customers on Twitter. Number 1, be personable, but also professional, and stay away from too much jargon. You know who hates jargon? Millennials. And you know what? That's the biggest generation in history, and they love interacting with you on Twitter. So keep it simple, don't overdo it, don't use acronyms, and just try and simplify your language if you can. Number 2, you don't want to do wit or try and be overly funny or sarcastic on Twitter. After all, it's customer support, and you know what customers want? Help. They don't necessarily need to be entertained. And you know, some brands, they do Twitter comedy pretty well. Zappos does its own thing, and there's a lot of other brands that are cheeky or funny or cute. But overall, I'm not sure that customer service is really the best group to be doling out funny, witty, quips on Twitter. They really need to just be focusing on getting the customer help. Unless you're Mindy Kaling and you've taken over a Twitter support you've taken over customer support for a brand on Twitter. And you know what? You're pretty lucky if you've got Mindy Kaling doing that, but you probably don't. Number 3, instead of trying to sell people stuff on social media, maybe you've done a search for, say, a laptop, and you're like, oh, you're looking for a laptop? Buy ours. Instead, just try and be helpful and guide them to some interesting resources or content. And if you do this in a more soft way, I think you'll have more luck than hard selling that customer on Twitter. If you can, number 4, respond to the customer in their native language. Netflix does a fantastic job of this. If a Netflix customer tweets in French, guess what language Netflix is going to respond in? French. If a customer tweets in Spanish, guess what language Netflix is going to respond in? Spanish. You've got it. So Netflix is a really great way of just being personable and also speaking the language literally of that customer. My last tip for you has to do with SLAs. Basically how long it takes for the company to respond to you, service level agreements. And the industry benchmark today is about 15 minutes. And I know a couple of you brands, you've got millions of customers tweeting to you, especially your airlines. It's just so hard, and the customers get caught in the queue. However, if you do want to show your Twitter muscles and be best in class, you really need to speed things up and get those answers delivered faster. And the second part of this last tip has to do with being open 24/7. Your customers are using your products on the weekends too, and today's customer expects a very lightning fast response. So if you can, be there as soon as possible and be there all the time. So please send me a note on Twitter at Blake Michelle M. Those are my tips. Thank you very much.